Okay, as you work on your rough draft this week, it is very important to go back to the week 5 essay part 2 overview, or you could go back to, I believe it's week 1 that has the overview as well of the whole entire assignment. Read through the instructions. One thing I do want to point out, and again, it is important for you to read through all the instructions. I'm just pointing out a couple parts here, is you do need to put a subheading labeled part 2. So if we look at the example essay here, this is their part 1, and here is the subheading part 2. So that way I know where to start reading your essay. I have already graded part 1. I will not be grading part 1 again. It is not part of part 2. I will only be grading part 2 and what you have there, but they do need to be on the same paper because, again, we're building the research paper. We're just doing it a little bit at a time, so it's not too overwhelming. I also want to point out it is an Mla format, so you have the last name with the page number, you have the student name, the professor name, that'll be Sister Shada for me, the class name will be English 150, and then the due date. Please make sure right here they have an extra spacing, even though this is all double spaced. You don't need an extra spacing between the heading and here. They do have a good title that's here, and then they indent or tab once on the paragraph to begin the paper. So again, this is all part 1, and then we go into part 2. In part 2, you do need to make sure that you are analyzing each of the points of view from your positions paper. So remember, you were the listener at the table as you read through all of your articles, you annotated them, you pulled out the important pieces as you interacted with the articles, and now it is time for you to analyze what those people were saying on their points of view or their positions that they took on the issue. And then you will be synthesizing the different sources that you used as well. Each part of this paper for part 2 should be about 1.5 to 2 pages. So the introduction should be about a paragraph, a good beefy paragraph. Then you go into the position 1, analyze that position. Why is it important to the argument? How is it important? What is the viewpoint that is going on in the argument? Again, answering these questions here. Who is affected and concerned? What sides are currently debating that issue? What values do they share? That's when you get to the synthesis aspect and also what values are differing. Then that will be about 1.5 pages. Then you will go on to position 2. Do the same thing for position 2, and then you can then you can synthesize position 1 and 2. So this is for the first format that I'm going over. So again, you briefly introduce the introductory paragraph. You need a good thesis statement that does not take any sides. It's very neutral on that thesis statement. Go back and look at the videos and other aspects on how to write a thesis statement. Introduce, summarize, and analyze point of view 1. Introduce, summarize, and analyze point of view 2. Again, answering the questions above, or utilizing them to help you in writing your paper. Then synthesize point of view 1 and 2. Then you'll introduce, summarize, and analyze point of view 3. Then you'll synthesize all 3 points of view. When you synthesize, again, it is looking at what is different between the points of view and what values or what is common between the 3 points of view. Again, you are not inserting your point of view at this point. You are just sharing what the points of view are on the argument and synthesizing them so that you get ready for part 3. And so when you conclude part 2, you do want to set it up for part 3, where you will then introduce your argument. For this part, there is no personal pronouns. No I, me, my, we, our, us. Those are all personal pronouns. This should all be in third person point of view. He, she, it, they, them. Okay. Or you could do the second format. Again, this is organized around the format. The outline that I had the example of last week is surrounding format number 2, where you introduce, summarize, analyze all 3 points of view. Then you will have about 1.5 pages to 2 pages synthesizing the 3 points of views. Again, their similarities and their differences, and then conclude the paragraph. Or you could do format 3. And as I told many of you in the writing conferences, format 3 is a little bit more sophisticated to where you are, again, introducing the issue and the topic with a good neutral thesis, and then introduce, summarize sub-issue 1. So this is within your position in the sub-issue 1, where you're introducing, summarizing, analyzing, and synthesizing the other various positions within position 1. So it's a little bit more difficult on this one. Introduce, summarize sub-issue 2, introduce, summarize sub-issue 3, and then you'll analyze all the sub-issues there, and then you conclude, again, setting up for part 3. My suggestion is to do either format 1 or format 2 for your paper. Again, format 3 is a little bit more sophisticated. Also, look over the rubric for part 2. That is very important for you to do as well, so that you understand what you are being graded on. Is it strong for the purpose? Is it coherent? Is there analysis and synthesis? Is there organization? And the mechanics, grammar, which includes Mla formatting. Is it proficient, developing, or weak? Again, if you follow the instructions, if you do all the module assignments over the last 7 weeks or 6 to 7 weeks, then you will do just fine. Looking at the examples that are in the announcements is very important as well. So let's take a look at part 2 here of this paper. So this particular paper is talking about patriotism and the right to protest. So the existence of the current debate implies that indeed the flag and national anthem are important for Americans regardless of what side of the issue they favor. Great hook here. Okay, it leads from part 1 into part 2, this existence of the current debate, and regardless of what side the issue they favor, it is important. On the flag and national anthem, in part 1, this particular person talked about standing for the national anthem versus kneeling or sitting. She goes into a quote by Brett Sharp, and if you notice down here, she correctly put in the in-text citation. If you notice, no period inside the quote. The period is after the last parentheses on the citation. Okay, that's very important. That's part of Mla formatting for in-text citations. So she did this quote, national anthems are powerful political symbols, and then she went in and she did commentary, okay, talking about the passions. This particular citation is not needed, but again, when in doubt, put in the citation because you do not want to be flagged for plagiarism. So these passions can produce feelings of patriotism that, according to the definition of Merriam-Webster Online Dictionary, so she cited another source, and both of these sources should be on the works cited page because they're cited in the paper. So it's a love or devotion for one's company or country, and since she used the citation here, she does not need to have this in-text citation here. She doubled up, or he doubled up. I'm not sure if it was a male or female student, but this person doubled up on the citation. That's not necessary to do. So to those who experience such feelings through the national anthem, this becomes more than a folkloric song. To these Americans, the anthem is a representation of their patriotism. Great thesis statement. She is going to move on into position 1. So to those who feel this way, the national anthem also represents the nation's beliefs, values, freedoms, and sacrifices made to protect them. So that is the topic sentence of position 1 for this paragraph. Then she's going to go on and discuss that. And again, she cites 2 different sources. Now, for the second source that she cited, I always like to see at least minimum 2 commentary sentences, typically a why and a how it relates to the position, then a concluding sentence. You don't ever want to end a paragraph with a quote. You always want to wrap it up. You always want to have commentary. Again, I should see way more commentary in your paper than I should see quoted or summarized or paraphrased information, because this is showing your evaluative and analytical skills along with your synthesis skills when it gets to that point. So then she goes on to the next paragraph in this particular position. Categorizing Kaepernick as unpatriotic should not be surprising, given that those who do not support him see his actions as rejection of the American ideals and lack of respect for those who have defended them. So she's continuing her position 1, showing that, hey, these people disrespect Kaepernick for him kneeling at the football game a few years ago to the national anthem here in America. It's highly disrespectful. So she talks about one of the critics, Brian T. Smith, and again, she double-cited it. Don't need that, okay? But she did do the in-text citation or the parenthetical citation at the end correctly, again with the period after the last parentheses. But she doesn't, excuse me, she doesn't need to do it twice, just once is fine. And she continues on. I'll let you read through this if you like on your own. And then she goes on to a transition. For most Americans, standing up during the national anthem is the proper manner to honor what it represents. So continuing with position 1. Here is the transition to position 2. However, that indicates a contradictory position. So, however, there are those who see Kaepernick's actions as a form of patriotism unique to his generation, better known as millennials. So that is a different position, to where some people see it, it's absolutely unpatriotic. Now they see it as a unique form of patriotism. So then she's going to continue to talk about this unique form of patriotism. And then she's going to go on a third position. While many support Kaepernick's right to and cause to protest, not everyone agrees with the venue in which the manner of his protest. So then she goes on to that third position, again citing her sources that she used throughout the paper. And then she goes into synthesizing the 3 different sources as well. So for some, Kaepernick's desires to make things better for the Black community should involve a different type of action. And she talks about Dr. Polite from Shenandoah University, and she also talks about Austin Sefrin Jenkins and the similarities and differences. She did cut her paper short here. It is important to make sure that it's fully developed, because on the third position, she didn't fully go into that information. Again, each position is about 1.5 pages to 2 pages in length. Your synthesis should be about 1.5 pages to 2 pages in length. Total, your paper is going to be between 5 to 8 pages, minus the part 1. Okay, so again, 1,200 words for this second part, which is between 5 and 6 pages, but I will allow up to about 7-8 pages as you have the introductory paragraph and the concluding paragraph in there. Then she moves on, and she should be going on to introduce kind of part 3 in this. So this in turn poses the question, if this new form of patriotism that challenges tradition while highlighting the nation's issues by questioning set protocols is what will be able to provide a resolution to the division that America is experiencing, and also bring the change Kaepernick sought to when he first sat during the national anthem. So then she'll be ready for part 3 here. I would say add a little bit more to really distinguish what part 3 is. Then if you notice, her works cited page is in alphabetical order, going all the way down, and you have the hanging indent. It's all in Mla format, going all the way down, and she has the minimum 5 sources. She actually has way more than 5 sources, and that is perfectly fine. So good luck on writing your rough draft of your second part of your essay. Again, Ask questions early on. Don't wait to when you're stressed and under pressure.